Hi, welcome to the Whitey White Guy Show. I'm Whitey, and today I'm going to do a kind of thrown together review of Child's Play. There's a lot of people in the kind of network of video game reviewers and movie reviewers and retro video game reviewers that I'm trying to put together who are horror film aficionados and reviewers and just fans. And I realize I don't have a whole lot of horror up on this channel yet. And so I've recently recently torrented all the Child's Play that exists, except for that kind of one offshoot reboot, which I gotta go get. Where Chucky, it's not Chucky anymore. It's a good guy doll. I don't have it yet, but I'm working on that. So, Child's Play, by chance you've never heard of it or seen it, came out in 1980. 87-ish, 86. Came out in the 80s, and there's at the time, if you're not familiar, there was a doll. Oh, my God. What was that doll called? It was a real life doll. It was my buddy. My buddy. My buddy. Wherever I go, he goes. And then there was Kid Sister. Kid Sister. Kid Sister. Same jingle. But so somebody had an actually fairly brilliant idea in the 80s. There was all these, Jason and Mike Myers and Freddy Krueger. What if one of these little dolls that all the kids are walking around with would kill her crazy and started killing people? And that movie is Child's Play. And so what happens, you have a guy, the film begins with a guy, what's his name? Charles Lee Ray's the character, and it's Brad Dourif, an excellent, excellent actor named Brad Dourif. And Brad Dourif, before we even get into the film, this movie works almost exclusively because of Brad Dourif and the excellent he does both as Charles Lee Ray and in the voice of Chucky, when he's live action and then when he's just doing voice. The film works because of this guy. And anybody else, I don't know that we're even talking about this movie. And it's been a long time since this came out. So good on Brad Dourif. 1988 is when this film came out, apparently. Yeah, first appearance, Child's Play, 1988. I thought it was a little earlier than that. I didn't think it was that late into the 80s. In any event, so what happens, you have this guy called the Strangler. They just refer to him as the Strangler. He strangles people, damn it. And it is 6:20 in the morning. I just woke up. I'm trying to get a lot out today. But Charles Lee Ray is the notorious Bay Area Strangler. I'm not reading that. That's from memory. And so you see him, the actor, Brad Dourif, he's Charles Lee Ray. He's running around. And the opening scene, he's being chased by a detective played by Hamana, whose right hand man is Tommy Swerdlow, comes in later. So he's chasing, the cop is chasing down the bad guy. They're shooting back and forth at each other. The bad guy is hit in the chest and has a mortal wound. Shoots, he's running out of places to go, shoots out the lock on the door and stumbles into a toy store, big, pretty good sized bunch of like toys and stuff. And this is the 80s, the mecca of consumerism, and toys for kids was huge. Every Saturday you got all these, Transformers and all the other He-Man, and so you'd have your kids you'd have the cartoon on Saturday, which would spawn a video game, which would spawn a breakfast cereal, which would spawn a comic book, and then you'd go buy the toys, and there was this whole just episode. This was that period where that was just bigger than it had ever been before. And so movie is in part commentary on all that. But as the bad guy, Charles Lee Ray, realizes he's dying, you're going to find out later he's acquaintances with a voodoo priest. Of course. So he's looking for something to take his soul in his psyche, I suppose, and put it into something so that exists. And then if he can get into another body, he will continue to exist even though his body is dead. Hang in there. What's the thing he stumbles upon as he lay dying? A Chucky doll, which is just like the My Buddy doll. So it's a little already creepy looking doll. And you watch it, of course, they have to make this doll so it can look very creepy. You can optimize the creepiness of this doll, and at the same time, you're looking at a doll going, who the hell would buy that for their kid? That is just creepy. So the My Buddy, the real life, about half. If you're 9 years old, it's about half as tall as you. Doll looked warm and welcoming, and you go, wow, I want to hang out with that doll. That's a good guy, a good doll to hang out with. And they called it the good guy doll in the Chucky movie. Oh, you really just had to see it for it to make sense. But so whereas the real life My Buddy doll looked like something you buy and put in your home, the good guy doll, the Chucky doll in the movie is like, why in the fuck would you buy that? That looks creepy as shit. So when it's supposed to be creepy, oh, and it is, it works great. But you're just like, who makes these decisions? But it's a movie with a walking, talking doll, so and it's a doll that has motors in its face. It's animatronic-ish. My screen is freezing up. Here we go. And it has I think they said 3 sentences. It's one of those things where you pick it up and you hold it, and it goes, "Hi, I'm Chucky. Want to play? We'll be friends to the end." And then over and over again until you finally throw it in the trash because you're sick of that crap. But so anyway, is the bad guy, Charles Lee Ray, lay dying, he's bleeding out. He does this, this prayer ritual thing, and storm clouds attract, and there's lightning, and then explosions, and he puts his soul, the strangler, the horrible, he kills people for whatever his motivations, they never really establish. But he's a bad dude, and he puts his body into this doll, which, when you're watching it, he's like, they got me, you sons of bitches, and his hands are covered in blood. And then he's doing the prayer. He's got his hands on the Chucky doll's chest, and he's like, give me the power, I beg of you. And then when you see the doll later, there's no blood there, and it's like, weren't you bleeding a lot? To the point where you were done. You were in a pool of blood, and now it's like nothing. It's gone. It's on Nintendo. Upright, A, B, select, and the blood's gone. But a minor qualm with the film. So Charles Lee Ray is now in this doll. His psyche, his soul is in this doll. And you find out it's just some exposition later. He's got 2 weeks to get out of the doll's body and into somebody else's body. But it has to be the first person who he spoke to. He doesn't find this out till later. But he has to get out of that body, or he's going to be trapped in that body forever. He's going to be a doll forever. So he's got to find a way out. The little kid, and there's going to be a little kid. What was his name? It was Boy George or some shit. I don't remember the dude's name. The little kid, Andy Barkley, was the little kid's name. There's a little kid. He's 7 or 8 years old. And he wants a Chucky doll. His single mom, played by desperately wants to get the Chucky doll for his little kid right before Christmas. But everybody's out. Even though when Charles Lee Ray got killed, there's hundreds of them. No, there's none. She's at work, and then a friend at work is like, there's a peddler out there that has a Chucky doll for $50. She buys it, gives it to her son for Christmas, and that's the doll that has Charles Lee Ray, the strangler, the killer guy, the bad guy, in it. And hilarity ensues. So at first, Charles Lee Ray is just pretending to be a doll. At some point, again, he manages to get out of the house and get to this Jamaican voodoo dude who explains to him you only got 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever it is, so many hours to get out of that body. It has to be into the first person who saw you, or the first person you spoke to, and that is the little kid, Annie Barkley. So Charles Lee Ray has to perform this ordinance voodoo thing on the kid to get his body, his soul into the kid. And hilarity ensues. And I'll leave it at that. The thing is, of course, nobody believes anybody that this doll is alive and talking to them. And so Chucky ends up killing a bunch of people. The original detective gets back involved and shit happens. This is pretty damn genius concept. It took some explaining. I'm 11 minutes in. I'm just now getting to the actual review. But when this came out in '88, it kind of made sense as a concept because it's, everybody had these. That if you go back to the 70s and 60s, you really didn't have quite all this stuff. You go to the 50s, the 40s, 30s, yeah, you could go back. Kids always had kids' toys, but this was more like an explosion. And so it just kind of made sense in the era of Freddy and Jason and everybody else to have a killer doll because that was the thing that was going on. And they did a surprisingly good job with it. Brad Dourif crushed it, both as Charles Lee Ray as the person running around and then as the voice for the doll. He's creepy as hell. The doll goes from like hey to like and is like startlingly creepy. And then of course he's small, so he can hop under beds. He's a little tall, and I don't know how it works in terms of muscle mass because he technically doesn't have any. It's like through the power of the supernatural, he's able to stab you and move. But he's obviously not going to like overpower an adult man or an adult woman. But to the little kid in Barkley, he's very dangerous because they're comparable in size, and he's getting knives and he's a strangler and he's trying to kill you. So that's very scary stuff. And then, but he's not going to outpower. So he's got to convince you he's a doll, and that the person saying that that the doll can talk is insane, which he does well. And then, hide in a corner and come around quick and stab you or something. That's his abilities. And they make it believable as you possibly could. When it's the kid running around, yeah, it's like, dude, that kid's in danger. That dog can do some damage. And when it's like the babysitter, it's like, holy cow, this could be bad. Once the adult dudes show up, the two detectives, Tommy Swerdlow and the other guy, it's like, well, it's a little doll. What's it going to do to you? You got guns. But they eventually take him out, as you might guess. So it's if you've never seen it before, do check it out, because the first one, as always, the first one's the best one. And the writing, they took the time to make sure that even though it's like Jurassic Park, you can't bring back dinosaurs from mitochondrial DNA. But if you could, from that point, the rest of the film is fairly realistic fiction. You're not trying to tell this over-the-top crazy story. It's if dinosaurs could come back, what would that look like realistically? You don't have a guy who can put himself into a doll and run around and attack kids, but if you could, the rest is kind of, they keep it down to realistic. You have to have a plausible reason why he's doing step A, step B, and then it's believable that he'd get away with this stuff. It's that kind of film. The first one does a good job with that. As the series goes, and it's been 30 some odd years now, it's got more and more outlandish and less likely that this would go on. But the first one does a pretty good job of, it's believable enough that it doesn't, the craziness doesn't take you out of the film, but it's not like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to kick that doll's ass. It's not going to be a threat to me. But the creepiness, the voice, Brad Dourif's voice, and the look of the doll, and that is just unnerving and unsettling. So there's those tension moments where you see the doll's feet getting closer to the babysitter, and you're like, ah, that's pretty good. It's done pretty good. But it goes off the rails. The other ones, by the third one, you're just like, but the drill sergeant was cool. So anyway, that's my review of Chucky, Child's Play. I'm gonna leave it at that. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's pretty good. The first one. The first one. We'll stick with that. Pretty gory, but not uber super gory. It was like gory enough to make the point it was trying to make without overdoing it. And creepy enough. Again, you got to suspend some disbelief, but it was again within the idea that there's a man's soul in this doll. It was believable enough to get into it and enjoy it. So go check out Child's Play. Again, Brad Doirif. Can't say enough about that guy. He does a phenomenal job. And thank you for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and you know what to do. Throw me $5 on Patreon because you love Ireland too, like me. Or find a fucking reason to help me out financially. But Whitey White Guy, I'm on Patreon. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Good journey.